Bismillah, we can start.
Okay, Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. My name is Muna Khan, and welcome to our program here about Ask Us Anything that is hosted by IFSA. We've got the Executive Director, Omar Yaqub, and our EN Manager, Sumaira Farouk. I'm so excited to be here. IFSA is very close to my heart, all the amazing work that they do, and I'm so excited to be here and be a part of this process. And instead of me rambling on and on about how amazing IFSA is, I'm going to actually turn it over to the two people that actually know how amazing it is firsthand, in and out. So maybe I'll just turn it over first maybe to Omar, who is Executive Director, to kind of talk a bit about IFSA and what we're doing here.
Oh, thank you so much, Muna. IFSA, Islamic Family and Social Services Association, is an Edmonton-based organization. It's been around 30 years. Amazing to see that perseverance. It's an Imagine Canada accredited charity, which is the gold standard for charities in Canada. And over the last year, we've had some remarkable achievements. We won the Government of Alberta's Inspiration Award for combating domestic violence, the Canadian Mental Health Association Professional Care Award, and we're also recently featured in Edify magazine as one of the inaugural edifiers. We serve 5,000 people every month. Right? That's a substantial amount of people who depend on the services IFSA offers. And those services are around safety, security, and growth. And so safety looks at food, domestic violence, helping refugees, helping youth find a sense of belonging, a range of programming that meets people at different points in life. And it's been a remarkable journey. Over the past few years, we've grown significantly. We now serve more people in 1 month than we did in all of 2015.
Incredible stuff. Thanks so much, Omar, for kind of giving that overview of what the organization has done and maybe a glimpse of where we're hoping to go in the future. Now maybe I'll turn it over to Sumaira, again, the EN manager, to talk a bit more and maybe more in detail about some the programs, the EN program, and just kind of get a sense of that.
Thanks, Muna. Peace and blessings, everyone. I manage IFSA's Essential Care Program alongside a team of 2 frontline navigators and 2 intake workers. As a unit, we provide support, resources, and assistance to the most vulnerable individuals in our community, regardless of religious affiliation. The program focuses on ensuring that clients' immediate essential needs are met. We collaborate with various organizations like the Edmonton Food Bank, Cobb's Bread, Leftovers, and Second Harvest to provide approximately 5,000 individuals from over 70 countries, speaking more than 140 different languages and dialects, with halal food hampers, access to a monthly legal clinic, a yearly tax clinic, and access to resources within the Edmonton community that can assist clients in meeting their needs. And we had a really, really busy Ramadan, mashallah. We distributed 650 Ramadan hampers, 780 regular hampers. 350 iftar meals were donated by Human Concern International, 350 by Sahaba Mosque, 100 by Islamic Relief Canada, 80 Rahim's Khair hampers were distributed. Over 4 van loads of donations from the Edmonton Islamic Academy were distributed, along with $10,500 in gift cards from ICNA. So I can just give you a basic idea of how hectic the program can get and how much work we do, mashallah.
Incredible. Sumaira, as you were talking, I had these flashes, and I'm sure you guys will remember this. And I was just thinking about, where IFSA began, in that dear uncle's basement, right? And again, it came from this idea of that there's this need to give back to our community and to have those culturally sensitive and culturally humble services. And from that to what you guys are describing, 30 years is really actually not that long to see how far it's come. Really on the efforts of staff and volunteers, it's really incredible. So thank you guys both for that, for kind of setting the stage for today's discussion. So again, Ask Us Anything. Today we're going to be discussing a new position that IFSA is hiring for, and it's the Frontline Navigator. And so I think let's just get right into it. So Omar, my first question is for you. Can you tell me a bit about what this role means for the organization, and specifically for clients and for volunteers?
Yeah, great question. I think it's one of the most important roles in the organization. It's an ambassador for the organization. This is the first person people see when they connect with the organization, whether it's on the phone or email or in person. And it has that importance of an ambassador, right? The ambassador, if you think about it from a national perspective, your ambassador is someone who represents you, shows you in a good light, and connects people with the resources that you have, right? And so this person has that role of an emissary. They're the first person people see, and also the most frequent person that they might see when interacting with us. And so they need to be this really warm, receptive person to the clients who come to us and to the volunteers who work with us. They need to give those people the best possible experience.
Yeah. I love when you talked about being an ambassador,
Mm-hmm.
right? And when you talked about the experience for our volunteers and for our clients as well, right? That's so key. First point of contact. That's what I really heard, right? And the importance of that moment when someone walks in the door, right? And that importance of that moment. Yeah. So connected to that. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. One thing that, just building on that, right? Like the importance of greeting people with a smile, right? Can't be overstated.
Yeah.
It's so essential, right? Because you might be connecting with someone who doesn't speak the same language you do, who might have missed 3 buses to get to you, might be going through some of the worst moments in their life, and you're there to give them relief, right? And they might have a whole bunch of anger that they're bringing with them into this meeting that isn't at all directed towards you, right? But you're there to de-escalate that situation, to make them feel like they're important and valued, and make the rest of their day and their life better.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I love that. This idea that, just like you said, everyone's coming with their own story, and maybe that day has been particularly a difficult story, like, to get to that point where they're walking through the door, and just in that moment, that smile, it's kind of that first step to turn it around, right? Yeah. And smiling is universal, right? There's no language to kindness or to smiling. Yeah. Samara, anything you'd like to add to that? Or I know like that was, an amazing succinct answer from Omar, but anything you'd like to add to that?
No, that was definitely, it was perfect. We do require somebody who, is nurturing the relationships that we want to make and maintain with our clients. So that's very important for me, the welcoming, just taking a minute to sit down and talk is very significant. You don't sometimes understand how important that is for somebody who's isolated, who's taken such a huge step to approach an organization for help, and they're scared, they're vulnerable. You're the first person that they're going to be seeing, and the way that you respond to them is going to make or break that experience for them, basically.
Right. And even Samara, as you were talking kind of on the EN program, you listed all these amazing partnerships, that you guys have been able to cultivate. And I would imagine too, that this role is going to be a part of that as well, right? That experience for your stakeholders and partners too. So really key. Yeah. So I guess, building on that thread, Samara, my next question would be, when you look at the job description, it talks about hospitality, and we're talking about a social work position, which is unusual because you usually don't, as a social worker myself, I haven't really seen that too much in too many job descriptions. So can you talk about why that's important? I know we kind of touched on it a little bit in our earlier discussions, but can you talk about really, that hospitality piece? Why is it so key?
I think it's important because, I mean, hospitality can be learned anywhere, right? So it's what you learn when you're hospitable, or when you're in a previous position where you learned the requirements that we are looking for in a frontline navigator. That would include things like excellent customer service skills, right? It's about being positive and proactive. You learn to be culturally aware. Like, your customers may not always share the same values, the same belief systems and perceptions. So it's really important to take this into account when trying to help them feel like more comfortable. You learn communication skills. It is important that you communicate in a way that is both like very clear and understandable at the same time as being representative of your organization. The ability to build and cultivate relationships is an integral part of this communication. You learn multitasking skills. Frontline, like hospitality, is always hectic. You need to manage your time well, and be able to handle pressure calmly and effectively. You need to have an excellent work ethic. It's likely you're going to be really busy. You're going to be on your feet, so you have to stay cheerful and friendly, and that's very important to somebody who's coming in for the first time. You learn like multiple language skills. That's going to allow you to reach a wider range of clients, and you can establish like personal day-to-day relationships with them when you can converse in their language. I mean, that's not necessary, but it can help. And sometimes, like, language can even be the way your facial expressions, are you smiling or scowling at them? Professionalism is important, ensuring that you look tidy and well groomed, and you're on time for work. And it means keeping your cool and not reacting like negatively when dealing with a frustrated client, like Omar mentioned before. Teamwork skills have to be on par. You should be able to work well with others, as you're going to be a connector. You're connecting clients to staff members and to resources. Problem solving skills, knowing how to keep clients happy without having to ask your manager every single time. Maybe you know the answer, and taking that initiative to solve that problem. Attention to detail is very important. You need to remember names, setting reminders for yourself to input like missing information, updating their personal details like addresses and phone numbers, offering tea and coffee to clients. Just you need to remember lots of little details. So that hospitality it's more like it teaches you respect of others and of their cultures and their journeys, and how we can join that journey and make it easier for them.
I love that. Yeah, Omar.
Building on that, I think one of the ways that this connects to our values and our culture, and one of our values is ihsan, beneficence, and the way we translate that is making people feel beloved. Right. So that isn't necessarily doing what you think you love doing, but doing the stuff that will make someone else feel like they're really valued and appreciated, that they've chosen to come with us, and we have the opportunity to serve them.
Yeah. And again, as you guys were talking, I was thinking about, it's almost as if someone comes to your home, and how you would treat them. Right? How you open your home to them. And now I think sometimes we think about hospitality and service in kind of a, especially in the professional setting, almost like a negative, right? But what you guys described was really this really beautiful experience, right? And it's about cultivating an experience. And I was just thinking about that. Like, if a guest came to my home, those are all the things that I would want for them, right? For them to feel beloved, for them to feel appreciated, right? All of those things. And wouldn't you offer them some pink chai or some pink tea and all of those things, right? Yeah. No, amazing. Thank you. That really helps me kind of wrap my head around that hospitality piece for sure. And Samira, I guess while we're talking to you, I'll continue with that. So what would you advise someone, because this happens a lot when people apply. You don't have all the qualifications, you don't meet all the criteria. What would you say to someone like that, right? That maybe they don't have all the qualifications. What should they do?
I think it's important to ask yourself some like crucial questions, like, do I satisfy all the non-negotiable criteria, like which is probably listed. Like, you need to figure out what those essentials are after going through the job description. And if you're confident you possess them or have an equivalent, then go ahead and apply. Remember, you can always like grow into the role. Ask yourself, am I confident that I can do this job? Just read the posting very carefully and try to envision like what the successful candidate would do on a daily basis. Based on this, like, think about whether the role is one you genuinely like believe in and you can take on, and whether you're confident you can quickly fill any of those gaps that you may have. Ask yourself if you're like a good overall match. If you can clearly communicate why you're an outstanding match based on IFSA's values, goals, and like the working environment that we're talking about, you could potentially make up for the fact that you may not have all the check marks. Does the job excite you? Are you like, you have to be realistic and enthusiastic about the position and the organization. Do you have transferable skills relevant to the role? It could be something that you learned in a previous position that you held that you can transfer well into this new position, like the ability to communicate clearly and work well in a team, and multiple other things that I already mentioned.
Yeah.
A perfect candidate doesn't exist, right? So, take a bit of ease if you don't meet all the requirements. Also know that this is a journey, right? And we want to journey with the candidate. So if you're thinking about registering for a social work program, you're midway through your social work program, and like, oh, this is great, but I just don't have that qualification yet. Still consider applying. And one of the questions that I saw posted was, how does the social work aspect factor into the role? And I think that's really important that skill set is at the table, that we're thinking about the trauma that people are coming with. We're thinking about resources that we might connect people with. We're following up our hospitality with the appropriate responses, right?
Yeah. And what I was just, thinking about, I actually shared this with the team a bit earlier, was that, someone had shared to me years ago, when they had first come to North America, and, as students, they were looking at jobs, and there were all these, postings, and they kept coming back to their, husband and saying that, well, I don't have this, like, I don't have the qualifications, I don't have this. And his advice to her was that just apply, right? And, hopefully you get the interview. And if it comes up in the interview and you're asked about these things, you just say, I don't, but I'll learn, right? So this idea of that, just like you said, Omar, it's a journey. Just like you said, Sumera, it's the passion, right? That, that you're willing to learn, that you're willing to do that. And, very serendipitously, that person that, shared that antidote with me is your clinical director, Lubna Zames. So I think that, obviously it's something that it's ingrained in the people that you hire and that you work with, is that idea, right? That, you got to hustle a bit. you got to work at those things. But yeah, no, great. That's awesome. So Omar, now that you kind of got you here on the spot, I'll continue with that. So you talked about this journey of learning and kind of coming along with the organization as it changes and it grows, right? Like that's, that kind of goes hand in hand. As we grow, we change. So can you talk to us a bit about some of the specific changes that are underway at IFSA right now, and that particularly, would be relevant for this position? Yeah.
One of the most dramatic is, thinking at a very fundamental level about what we want to achieve, right? 2 years ago, we changed our mission statement, and now it's a mission question. That mission question is, how do we support the whole person flourish in our community, right? And based on that question, we evaluated some of our programs, And, to some degree, we might say, hey, we're helping that person keep their head above water. But that isn't meeting the mission question, right? It isn't helping the person flourish. And so one of the things we were trying to do is shift from, measuring outputs, right? Which is easy to do, right? I did it at the very beginning of this call, right? We serve this many people, right? And how can we change from, measuring this output to measuring goals, right? So, the people who came to our organization, they're in more secure housing now. They're enrolled in a program. They've gained a new skill. We've unlocked these things for them, right? Now that's a easier said than done, but it's the most dramatic and fundamental shift we've gone through ever as an organization, right? How do we measure what matters? Because once we start measuring what matters, it shifts the conversation, right? We start thinking about ourselves differently, right? Our goal at the front line of the organization is not to be a bouncer, checking eligibility, but it's there to be a guide, connecting people to resources, right? And so that's going to require a nimbleness for us as an organization to shift systems and to start thinking about how do we incrementally and iteratively improve as we build this out. And there'll be a link we post to kind of one of our biggest challenge statements out right now, where we've been working with MetaLab, who are the developers of Slack, Coinbase, Facebook Messenger, and others to create a new system for supporting people through a journey.
Mm. And it sounds like, my background obviously is in graduate studies and social work. So it sounds like what you're describing is more moving away from that quantitative, right, measure, and how we look at this to qualitative, right, and really looking at the quality of change that not for for the clients, and because I think a lot of the times, my very brief experience, a lot of times with NGOs, we're dictated by these reports that we have to give back to our funders, and they're so number heavy, right? So like what you just talked about, how many families did you serve, all of these types of things, and I love how you guys are. That's important, not to say that we don't need that information, but you guys are changing the narrative a bit, right? And really looking at what does this mean for this client, and this frontline navigator is really key, because again, it's about that experience, right? It's not about 300 people walking through the door. It's about that each interaction, what that looks like for that person.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah. What changed in my life as a result of knowing you?
Yeah. I love that. There's a question in the chat. So it says, what does the frontline navigator role look like now with COVID-19 pandemic and restrictions? So just, whoever wants to take that one.
Samara's better.
I mean, I can tell you what we're doing currently. Like the frontline navigators are the first persons that the client comes in contact with. That is, they greet the client, but they're unable to have a conversation due to the fast-paced, like, essential care schedule. And with COVID, all of that actually it became more of an issue because we can't see the clients face to face anymore. We did install a sliding window just to keep both clients and the staff safe, where people pick up their hampers. So that connection that the frontline navigator had with the client has been cut right now. Like, we can serve up to like 40 client households in a day in reduced hours due to COVID, while receiving shipments and doing the assembly and the distribution. Frontline still sets up appointments. They deal with walk-ins. They provide the helpline number for anything like non-essential care related, and they field queries and complaints or requests by phone or email. And a lot of our like the frontline work has gone online or it's connected by the telephone. So like each file is checked for important information and continuously updated. And depending on the file status, clients may be booked for reassessments, again, which are being done online or on the phone. That's to redetermine their like eligibility, and they're marked for follow-up. In certain cases, frontline navigators will be providing some semblance of outreach or support. They have to keep a list of clients who require their taxes filed, baby baskets, household goods, laptops, school supplies, or any other item they may need to make their life easier. The work currently doesn't provide time for connection, and we're hoping, post-COVID, we can go to this like reimagined role, which is going to be more welcoming. It'll be the first step in establishing a meaningful relationship with the client, so that the frontline navigator can listen, they can validate, they can connect, and nurture the client.
So it sounds like obviously like so many of us we're having to renegotiate so many things with COVID, and obviously keeping everybody safe is the priority right now. So it sounds like you guys have put in some really good policies and procedures around that, and to make sure that you're meeting all the requirements of AHS and keeping clients and staff and volunteers safe as well. And again, we're all hopeful that we are coming to an end to this, and that and then that role will be again kind of reimagined. Omar, did you want to jump in there?
Yeah. I think as unfortunate as COVID has been, it's also taught us a great deal. One of those things is digital hospitality and digital engagement with people. And so, we now see counseling clients who are meeting us from the back of their car, right? Their kids are at home doing whatever there is. They're in front of their home, and they have this brief bit of respite with which to engage with us in a way that's comfortable. And that's going to continue well into the future, right? Because it makes things accessible. When we think about this role, and that role as an ambassador, right? People are going to be calling you on the phone. They're going to be emailing, and how are we going to respond to them in a way that's really helpful and giving them clear answers, and doing that also in a way that gets us better every day, right? So if you think about if you've done customer service with a big retailer or a bank and anytime recently, you're going to get your knowledge bank answers, right? These formulate quick answers, but then you're going to have someone who might follow up with a more tailored response, right? So how do we build out that bank of answers that are clear and easy for groups who might have English as their fifth language, but still continue to kind of keep that personal touch.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So kind of a layered approach, right? Because, when someone reaches out to you, one of the first things is that quick response. So even if it's an email saying that, we got it, thanks, so it's just not going into this like abyss, right, of unanswered emails. And then just like you said, then circling back and having that more in-depth, contact is so key. So that's what I heard is kind of layers on that, which is great. We have another question in the chat, which is, where there will be will there be any training provided?
Yeah. So IFSA has a training allowance dedicated to every staff member. And so we're really willing to work with whoever is a successful candidate to identify the training opportunities that help them.
And it sounded again, one thing that I keep kind of hearing about is it's really about, coming into the position and the willingness to learn and to engage with all the multiple, and you're going to learn on the ground, right? Like that's really what this is, right? It's a hands-on position for sure.
And part of we're moving into a new location where we're going to have our counseling, our youth program, our food programs all in one place, and we're implementing new systems. So we'll all be learning, and we'll be making mistakes as we do this. But the key thing is that we're focused on how do we serve people in the best way? How do we continue to improve what we're doing? And so this training and learning is a collaborative endeavor.
Yeah, agency-wide. Anything to add to that, Sumera?
No, I agree with Omar where it's going to be a learning experience for all of us. It's actually the perfect time to step into the position because everything will be new for everyone and nothing's written in stone. I foresee it changing maybe on a daily basis until we get it right.
Right. So this idea almost that, taking this role and making it your own, right? And that's that initiative I heard that you're talking about, Sumera, kind of comes in right? That ability to take initiative and to really be able to multitask and make this role work is kind of what I'm hearing, and doing that in a really supportive environment.
Yeah, I should also add, just so there's no misunderstanding, we also do have formal training. So if you're, if you want to enter into a social work program, or you're already in there and you need support for it, we can provide support for that.
So again, professional development is a really key sounds like value, and wanting to encourage that for all staff as well, right? That's what I'm hearing as well. So maybe kind of keeping up to that, now we're kind of talking a little bit more about logistics and kind of the position on the ground. So Mara, what do you envision? Because I think you've already kind of talked about, what the day-to-day could look like, right? You kind of talked about what the dynamics of that would be. Could you go into a little bit more detail about what some of the challenges might be that you would come across, and also some of the blessings, right? So things that, would draw someone to this.
For sure, like the job can be challenging in that you're helping a vulnerable population overcome complex barriers, but it's rewarding in that you have a chance to bring your faith and career together to support, advocate for, and advise them. You'll receive prayers and gratitude from clients who are just looking for a guiding light on their journey, and enrich your community by giving back.
So what I heard was that, because you're working with really some of the most vulnerable members of society, right? That have, facing multiple stressors in their own history that kind of brings them to the door. So that, brings lots of challenges that kind of come. But the flip side of that is that because you are part of the, there to help them and to be part of that process, that really just the gratitude and the appreciation that you get is one of the big blessings. Is that yeah. Anything to add to that, Omar? Anything for you?
It's a really beautiful role where one can live their values and serve community in a meaningful way, and really help an organization and a community grow simultaneously.
And so we're just kind of, building on that notion of values, right? And so kind of talked about how obviously IFSA has grown to be this, large organization that's being recognized, by multiple, other agencies for the great work that you do, and all the different programs and things like that. Can you talk to me a little bit? Because I've heard this come up a few times about the values of the organization, right? And being able to live your values. Where you talked about that, and where you've talked about it as well. You both kind of are talking about it. Can you talk to me a bit about, how the values of the organization are reflected in the work, and obviously specifically in this role?
Yeah, I think that the first value that comes to my mind, although all the values apply, is Ihsan, beneficence, right? So treating people with excellence, right? So fundamental, and the manifestation of that is, can we serve people tea when they first come to us, right? So, oftentimes in a social work or food security, food bank setting, the focus might be on throughput, but, really, if we think about our goal, helping to see that person flourish, we have to value that time and excellence and making people feel valued and appreciated, making them feel beloved. When we think about heartfelt ingenuity, right, it's like, are we doing things today the same way we did them yesterday and the day before, or is it getting better, right? And getting better doesn't have to be monumental. It can be a series of incremental things. We're always trying to make it just a little bit better, right? There's so many ways our values apply to this. We'll post a link to our value statement. The mission question helps guide a bunch of this. Samara, did you want to add anything?
No, like I mentioned before, our values are so important in this role, because you're the first person who is coming into contact with somebody who's, upset. They're vulnerable. You don't know what they've been through. They may be coming from, a 6-year stint in a refugee camp. They're in a new country. They don't speak the language. What are you going to do to put them at ease? And kind of following those values as a guideline is very important for us. We have to do everything with love and respect and understanding, with empathy, just to put somebody at ease. People are isolated. There's so many issues that you see in a nonprofit that serves this vulnerable population, that you really have to, you know have that heart, that qalb in you to respond to those problems.
Yeah, yeah. And it sounds like what you're describing is more of a vocation as opposed to just employment, right? That this is something you really, believe and encompass. And I guess my next question, I know that there's a question in the chat that we're going to get to here, would be for both of you, because you both are in, obviously leadership and managerial roles. Can you talk a bit about, because we've obviously, as we should have been talking about this role with respect to clients and that interaction. Can you talk a bit about, even if as an organization, how you treat your employees, again, with these values that you guys have just, spent, so eloquently kind of explained how that, translates into clients and our stakeholders. But can you talk a bit about if as an organization, as an employee kind of coming in, and how those values, again, are represented?
Well, maybe a good starting point for that is another one of our values, right? But true partnership, right? And true partnership is it has an external manifestation. So Samara brought up all of the external partnerships we have with really important organizations like Edmonton's Food Bank, but it's also even more important internally, right? So how does the Frontline Navigator work with a support worker to do wraparound services, and realize that my team might be going through different stresses, right? This person who I'm working with, they might be juggling 8 high needs cases, but I know this person who is coming to me in a stressful situation also needs help, right? So how do I balance those two things and see what the needs are and find an opportunity for this client while not overstressing and overextending my coworker, right? I think it's really important to take that mindset of mercy, not only to the people who are coming to us for service, but also the people we're working with, right? And still holding ourselves accountable, being accountable ultimately to the people we're serving, but taking a partnership approach to building that out. Right? I think as a team member, right, I think it's really important that we are merciful and accountable, right? And the one value we haven't talked about is Noor, light. And light is this kind of a beautiful metaphor, right? Because it's actually a higher standard than accountability, right? Accountability is I did what I said, right? But if you think about light actually shows you how to do something, right? And it's teaching, right? And it's demonstrating through transparency. So I think those are some of the ways we try to manifest it.
Brilliant. Anything to add to that, Samara?
No, I think Homer said it beautifully. Yes, just believing in each other and trusting in each other, that we're all here to do exactly the same thing, and that is to help the individuals flourish, right? So it's important to know. I know that in essential care, things get so busy that sometimes you need responses right away, and it's really tough working in that environment, and you're wondering why your coworker isn't responding to you. So just using your experience to kind of diffuse the situation enough, and provide enough calm to somebody, and assure them that they're going to be helped, and you're going to get the best possible connection for them for that help, that would really help.
And so what I'm really hearing is, again, that it's a really collaborative, obviously, environment, right? And that all of those values, it's not, they're all parallel, right? So this idea that, as you know, whoever you're working with, whether it's a colleague or a client, that's when you're going to see those, values, and that element of patience is so key, and something that you guys live and breathe, is kind of what I heard. So I'll just go, maybe what I'll do is I'll just kind of go back to the chat so I don't miss any of these. So, so the question here about applying, you mentioned a short video. Can you please elaborate a little bit about that, please?
Oh, yeah, I'll step in. I'm going to talk as someone who's like reviewed, I can't even count the number of letters, but cover letters are horrible. Just to be frank, right? They're horrible to write, right? Because anyone, having written many myself, they're horrible to read because they don't actually like give you an idea of who you're working with. And oftentimes it can feel like taking a shot in the dark. And so with the video, what we're hoping to do is to, engage and begin a conversation, right? We're starting out with a really focused question, right? Where it lets us know a little bit about, how would you deal with the typical situation that we often deal with. Lets us understand a little bit about who you are, how you approach a technical challenge like shooting a video, right? As benign as that might sound, it's still important, and give us a feel for your communication style. And so I hope that as you put together your video, it won't be a harrowing experience, but it'll be a fun, challenging experience.
Yeah, it's something that I certainly haven't seen before, or a lot, I would say. I have seen it before, but it makes sense, right? Just like that, to kind of come across, what you're going to be like, and the interactions, and I'm with you. Cover letters are terrible. They're terrible to write, and they're terrible to read, for sure. So this kind of that more of a personal dynamic is what you're looking for.
Yeah. And it's also for us, it's just easier because we know the people who've done a video, they're not sending the same video to someone else. Hopefully not.
Right.
It's a very personalized, right? And so the pool of people who submit videos is going to be very small, and so that gives us the opportunity to really thoughtfully review each one.
Mm-hmm. And I love the videos. I love them. They're a total game changer because a resume is just like a sheaf of papers, or you're looking at them online. It's very easy to lose someone in that, but with a video, you can connect so well with somebody. You can see their facial expressions. You can understand how they speak, how they communicate. They're an excellent way of, narrowing down that the candidate list.
Right.
Yeah, it changes the perspective from like, oh, how good is their grammar, to how do they connect with them, right? Are they friendly and jovial, and like those little things that are so important, right? More important than grammar.
Right. Yeah. And it also sounds like, you talk about, people who are taking the time to create these videos and send them in. It's very intentful, right? So it's this, like, when you talked about, it's just not a standard cover letter that you just kind of just change the, title, and, that's about it, and you just send it off. But it's this idea that you really had to think about it. You really had to think about the position. And again, what I'm hearing is that echoing of something that Sumera talked about before, about, can you envision yourself in this role, right? And that's a really key question that, I keep kind of hearing. And so the video is kind of another piece of that, right? That you really have to take that step, because it's, for sure, putting yourself out there, right? And doing that. So no, that's awesome. That was a question I have to say I had for myself. So I'm glad that got answered. Another question here from the chat. You mentioned a social work student would be able to apply. I'm assuming wage and salary would be discussed as per credentials and experience. In that case, would you be able to discuss the salary scale?
So we put our salary range in the job description, I believe, right? And so I think it'd be a bit hard to discuss exactly what it is without knowing what the qualifications of the person are, but it would be a conversation.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense, right? Obviously, you have to kind of gear it towards who's in front of you and their specific experience and circumstances. And just like you said, it's a conversation to have.
Yeah. And, also someone's a social work student and they're looking for support with, with their tuition or other things, those are all factors that go into it.
Great. Yeah. So the last question that I actually had here is, again, to talk a bit about, and I'm going to, kind of throw this out to either one of you or both of you, is, we're talking about the job description and the application, it talks about being full-time hours, but with flexibility. So can you, what does that mean? What does that flexibility mean? What does it translate to?
Yeah. So I think, when we're talking about flexibility, we're also talking about it within the context of true partnership, right? So we want to, orient ourselves around what allows us to best serve the client. And, a Monday to Friday schedule probably isn't necessarily the right fit for everybody, right? We might say, hey, what if we made our schedule Sunday to Thursday, right? What if someone has to do child pickups, right? Can we structure the hours to make that work, right? And those are all possibilities, and we have to approach it from the perspective of, we want to give the clients the best experience. We want to have predictable and consistent hours, but we're also, we're able to be nimble, right?
Yeah. So it sounds very fluid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything to add to that, Samara?
No, I agree with Omar. He knows more about, the flex. It has to be flexible. It has to be fluid. We're still learning. It's everything's going to be new once we go to the new space, and I think that's something that everybody's going to learn to kind of accommodate in their schedule.
So again, it sounds like it's a conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we're going through a learning process right now where we want to reimagine what the best way of serving clients in a new space with new amenities is, right? And so that'll require some scheduling adaptability, right? What COVID's taught us is like we've adapted our schedule so many times over COVID, right? It's like, oh, how do we do this now, right?
Yeah.
When Samara came in and said, hey, we're putting in a drive-through window, I'm like, it's not something I ever imagined Samara would, right?
Yeah.
But
I think it's that adaptability that enabled us to, remain open, remain serving our clients. We're one of the only nonprofit organizations that did not close our doors to people who needed us most at the most vulnerable time in their lives. Like COVID threw a curveball on everybody, but alhamdulillah, we never stopped serving our clients. There wasn't a single day that went by that somebody was not able to access like the food hamper program or the services that they needed.
Yeah. And again, it's that ability to not only be flexible, but I would say to be responsive, right? And to be, certainly we're all reactive, that happens, but to be proactive as well, right? And that kind of that balance of taking that in. And that's going to, again, that sounds like something that's maybe reflected in this position too, right? That ability to be able to do that, right? Yeah, no, that's great. You know what I'll do is I'll just, turn it over to you guys, a few minutes for each of you, any kind of last comments or key messages, things that maybe we didn't touch on or that you kind of want to go back and circle back to. Maybe we'll start with you, Samara.
I think we've been pretty descriptive. I don't have any specific person in mind when I'm thinking about filling the role. It's just somebody that, we're hoping that we can really connect to, and then who in turn can connect to all the rest of the staff, to the clients, to the partners, to the stakeholders, to everybody that we work with, to the volunteers. That's a huge part of what we do is we've got amazing volunteers that you do need to build a rapport with. Again, it's about building those relationships, and it can be anybody who can be there. We just need somebody, charismatic, somebody empathetic, somebody who's willing to like put in the work to make things better for our clients.
So this is really simply, like what I heard was someone, just the last thing you said, someone that's going to, make things better for our clients, right? Like that's really the key thing. Yeah, core thing. Omar, over to you.
I want to just convey a huge heartfelt thank you for tuning into this. I'm sure there's a ton of other things you could be doing. So tuning into the session, listening to this point, asking questions, really, really, really appreciate it. Means a lot. These roles often don't get the attention they deserve. And so for you to tune in, to contemplate and consider this role means a lot to me, means a lot to us. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, everybody. And great questions in the chat, great engagement, made my job a lot easier. And so just as a reminder, deadline to apply is May 20th. The full application, I think the link is going to be posted here, but it's at islamicfamily.ca/careers. That's when they can check out the full description and the full application. And again, that, really key component of that video. It sounds like that's what's really, getting people to stand out. So that's a really key thing. No cover letters, just the videos is another key thing that I heard today. But thank you both, you guys, for joining us, and explaining it in such a descriptive and beautiful way, right? I think that for me, for myself as well, like I've never heard the term frontline navigator used before, but just the way that you guys, painted almost like a picture of what it is, top down, what that would look like was just amazing, right? Really, really amazing. So thank you guys again, all the people that tuned in. Thank you for, spending the last hour or so with us, and to our panel for answering all the questions so succinctly and so accurately. I really appreciate it. And so, yeah, stay tuned for the announcement, I guess, for the successful candidate.
Yeah. Thank you, Muna.
I loved it.
Muna.
My pleasure. Thank you, everybody. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.